Evening and welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle podcast. There's as much to talk about as Swansea as there is about Notts County tonight. And, of course, we've got back-to-back home games coming up against Colchester and a return of the Cowleys to Meadow Lane on Tuesday night, followed by the visit of relegation-threatened Tranmere on Saturday. We'll be discussing both of those games. Your thoughts and views for those of you who went and braved the cold over to the Potteries to see that narrow defeat at Port Vale. What are your thoughts and views on that one? Hands up, all those who've watched the Matt Saunders video. I set a few last week. So before we go further, hands up. Totally wrong regards Richard Montague. My apologies. Thought he was and told he was a lifer for Football Radar. Clearly he wasn't. And of course, my full apologies for that. But I suspect we will be discussing Richard Montague and our former manager, Luke Williams, who everyone thought would be renewing acquaintances at Swansea. But it appears 24 hours before Richard Montague was to officially start his role as Director of Football at Swansea. Swansea have sacked Luke Williams and his backroom staff today. What do we all make of that, indeed? Yes, and the Matt Saunders video, which I think, to be fair to Tom Williams, very good, a good interview to get. I'm not quite sure what adjectives to politely describe the interview. Yes, well, I can safely say I've never heard one like it before in my life. But if he sold football and a blueprint, and good luck to him in his future career, which presumably will be a very fruitful one. I found it quite bizarre, but what were your thoughts on that? What does it shed on the light does it shed on the relationship between him and Stuart Maynard? And one thought, I've already seen the Luke Williams should come back to Notts because we lost last week at Port Vale, this, that, and the other. My thoughts and views. I think every single one of us should be totally behind Stuart Maynard, even if we lose the next 5, right? We've got a short season, third of the season, whatever it is, to get into automatics or playoffs, whatever it may be. And clearly Stuart is going to be the man in charge for all of those games, right? And let's give him the very, very best support we can to give him the best chance of getting over the finishing line. He's lost 2 of his coaches. He's lost his director of football in the space of the past few weeks. Don't care who you are. That's tough. It's tough when you're a football manager, head coach. It can be a lonely existence. You need people around you who you can trust. Well, to be fair, he's lost most of them. He's lost most of them as Stuart. So, let's all get behind him. Short-term results are immaterial in my book. It's about getting to where we get at the end of the season. My view, and I wouldn't change it, is it needs to be automatics. Some will say playoffs is a success, but let's just give ourselves and Stuart the very best chance of doing that by all sticking together. Right, we'll get some thoughts and views from the flock. It's also a new one for me and a new one for Stell. Those of you expecting Louis, the Brussels Griffon, our official club mascot, he stood us up. So we've now been stood up, both of us, by a Brussels Griffon. I've had a message from him. Apparently his 2 owners are otherwise engaged and can't get back to him to look after him tonight. And unfortunately, Louis says with his little mitts, he can't operate the laptop himself. So unfortunately, Louis will not be with us tonight. So I'm afraid there will be less sense spoken than you might ordinarily get. Right, that's a long and rambling introduction. Stell, I'm not really quite sure where we start tonight, because I guess one of the hot topics of conversation is like what's happened at another club. Richard Montague's up sticks, director of football. Luke Williams, our former manager, has been dismissed, together with Ryan Harley and I think the Notts analyst George Lawty. We spoke a bit about Carlisle, didn't we? Spending all the money, 31 days of a transfer window, sign a shed load, and then sack the manager that's bought the players. Does this surprise you at all or not?
It doesn't surprise me. It's football, isn't it? Nothing surprises you in football. And I must admit, I don't really, obviously I've kept a little bit abreast of what's happened at Swansea. I've not really been following it closely at all. Didn't know really how they've been going games. I was only aware after the announcement of Luke Williams today that they'd won 1 out of the last 10. So, that's a poor run that would put anybody's job in danger, won't it? Just bizarre as things happen. The announcement of Richard Montague going down there. Everybody. Well, I put 2 and 2 together and thought, well, obviously that's a Luke Williams sort of recommendation. They like what they see. There's something going on there. They're going to link up again and try to bring good ties to Swansea. How wrong was I? My 2 and 2 got about 28, I think there. So yeah, I think Richard Montague's first official day is tomorrow at Swansea. And Luke Williams has gone today. So bizarre, yeah. But obviously, with football being such a results-based industry, there is no such thing as a job for life. There is no such thing as job security. Certainly not for a head coach or a manager. But yeah, strange set of circumstances. You're right. Looking from the outside in, it seems a bizarre thing. Obviously, the backroom staff goes. So I think Ryan Harley's probably got more chance of coming back and being a number 2 here, hasn't he? We're looking for a number 2 now. Matt Saunders and Craig Saunders have gone. Maybe Luke come back as a number 2. What about that? But look, nothing surprises me, Paul, with football. What Swansea do is their business, and it's that time of the year, isn't it? That time of the season. 16 games for Notts left, but 15, 16 games left of the season. Those clubs that think they might get dragged into some sort of relegation battle, there's a call on them, isn't there, to try and maybe pull the trigger now and try and get that new manager bounce, if it's such a thing. I don't think there is really, but it's decision time, isn't it, to at least get people or get a manager in that has got a little bit of time to do something. So I think Cambridge sacked their manager, although they're right at the bottom. Gary Monk went. He's gone today as well, I think. So there might be a few more in the coming weeks. Thankfully, not Notts though.
Yes, and the best post so far this evening, and he's normally quite humorous. Gazzalee, has Louis gone to Swansea? Yes, he might be attacking Cyril the Swan as we speak. You don't know, do you?
Ask the Twitter numpties; they'll know better than us.
Hang on. The I word is banned from this podcast. The I word, we know what that is. The TNs are now banned as well.
Are you banning them because they got the one up on you?
The TNs. Yeah. I think they probably hacked my broadband. My broadband's not working properly, so I'm off on a phone 5G tonight. So if it gets a bit crackly, you know why. Hopefully, we'll try and get through it. I don't know whether Gary Smithhurst is tongue in cheek or not. Get Luke Williams back and let's get back to attacking football. I think, Gary, that is tongue in cheek, although there have been a few bites on that one already. Swansea lost 7 out of the last 8, says Jurgen. As fans, we support the club, says Gary Phillips, whoever is in charge. Whoever the players, coaches, owners may be, we don't have a choice, really. Let's get a few more messages read out. There's a lot of the flock are out and about. I won't mention the Louis ones because obviously he stood us up for the evening. Good evening all and woof woof to Louis from Ian Hayward. We'll annoy that one. Adam Kent, good evening from Newark. We travelled to Port Vale and thought the travelling fans were excellent. Disappointed in the result. Not sure how we didn't score. Richard Elvian, the Reeds brothers are at the heart of our success, and he's even put it's good that he's put a heart emoji. I'm not so sure it's good that it's a red one. Couldn't you find a black and white striped emoji, Richard? Wayne Wilkins is our expert in these matters. I'm sure if you can't find one, he can find a black and white striped emoji, heart-shaped, for future use. Senga Schmidt, Williams only knew one way to play, got found out in the Championship. Evening from Paul Huskerson. Ian Cooksey. Williams wanted to be nearer his family, so luckily for him, he got sacked during half term. Bit harsh, Ian, bit harsh. Evening from Ray Newton, from Graham Oates, from Andy Esom and Kay and Jurgen from New Ollerton, as it is from Elvis Bott. Kay says Montague in, Williams out. Just bizarre. Evening from Stephen Newton. I can see Williams heading to MK Don, says Adam Lloydell. The previous incumbent's not had long, has he? Evening from Royston. We must get 6 points in the next 2 games. Ian Cooksey adds, Langstaff and Mann, Crowley and now Williams' careers seem to nosedive pretty quickly after leaving Notts. Just goes to show the grass isn't always greener. Martin Shipley, evening all from Gloucestershire. 6 points from our 2 forthcoming home games are a must, and we should be more than capable of getting them. Fingers crossed, says Kay. We have players back for tomorrow evening. Have a feeling it's going to be a tough game. Evening and looking forward to Colchester, says George Hilton. Evening from Andrew Blatherwick. Hope Traore gets a start, says Richard Elvian. Hello from Karen Knight. Subs bench for Traore, says Jurgen. Bit too soon to start. All right, we'll come back to some more messages in a moment. One thing I want to talk about, Stel. So we're talking head coach. And you know, my view is always the single most important person at any football club, in terms of certainly delivering results on a season by season basis, the head coach or the manager. And you would know, it can be quite a lonely business. Everyone's looking out for you and all the rest of it. So Stuart, in the last month, when you're looking to bring in lots of new players and all the rest of it, he's lost. I guess if you listen to Matt Saunders, he's lost his co-manager rather than his assistant head manager. He's lost another member of his coaching staff, and he has lost the de facto director of football, Richard Montague, who was kind of, from all the press releases that get put out, the lead person on recruiting the players that goes in to Stuart's pool of players from which he chooses. You're Stuart Maynard. How are you taking that? How big a blow is that, or isn't it, to you in the way you're functioning to do your job?
Yeah, it's a blow. It's certainly not what you want. You want stability, obviously, and continuity. To separate the two areas, if you like.
Yeah.
I think Richard Montague leaving is obviously a blow in terms of future recruitment, but you know, the recruitment was done. He stayed. It's my belief that it was his notice period was to stay, do the January transfer window at Notts, bring in the players. So other than obviously they would speak regularly about players, you know, Stuart Maynard and Richard Montague. But seeing as January was done and the business was done, I don't think that's got too much impact. You know, obviously going forward, there'll have to be a new person put in as head of recruitment, obviously, that Stuart will have to deal with. But, you know, because we're outside of a transfer window now, I don't think that has a massive, massive impact on Stuart and his job and his role and the team. The other side of it, losing, you know, Matt Saunders, Craig Saunders, a lot of that, you know, they've obviously been to work together for a few years, obviously via Wealdstone together. So that will disrupt his sort of preparation a little bit, how he sets out a week, how he operates in terms of, you know, maybe divvying up training sessions. You might deal with small groups, you know, and you've got a well, Matt Saunders, Craig Saunders, who can go and take a group and you can get involved overseeing. Well, I think with Stuart, he strikes me as being a fairly hands-on coach anyway, not what we see from the old days, a manager who just wandered around the perimeter, then went and had a cup of tea in the canteen and sort of picked the team on a Saturday or whatever. Stuart strikes me more as the modern day head coach who actually gets involved on the training ground, does quite a lot of the things himself. The João Alves is still there. He's been promoted up to replace Matt Saunders. But there will be a gap that's been left behind. Now, how big that gap is, I can only speculate. It will disrupt the normal flow of things and the normal sitting down. But you've still got nowadays, like I say, Joe Evans, not head coach, but first team coach. You've still got the same analysts. You've still got the same S&C people. You've still got the physios. So it's very much a team that's still sizable there. Same goalie coach. So I don't think. Yes, it's a disruption. Yes, it's not ideal. But I don't think it's absolutely critical. Now then, that obviously comes down to as well how the players took to Matt Saunders, Craig Saunders, what they actually did, and then the sort of hole that leaves. Can it be filled? Will it be filled before the end of the season? And if so, who by? So look, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, but without knowing exactly how they all worked and how it all sort of gelled together, very difficult to say quite how much of a disruption it is. But I'm sure Stuart Maynard and Zhao, that it's not total disruption for the players. Players are used to managers, coaches coming and going. So I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's. If anybody's trying to use that as the reason we lost at Port Vale, I don't think that's the case. But it is not ideal. That is absolutely for sure.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting in terms of numerical strength on the coaching staff. They are 2 down, aren't they? So Yao has been promoted. We have the full-time goalkeeping coach, but you've lost 2 full-time members of a coaching staff. Do you think, if you Stuart, you're wanting somebody else in? You were joking about Ryan Harley, and I know that's a joke, but in terms of personnel, and you've lost Richard Montague at the moment, who presumably the brothers will lead on replacement on that, not Stuart. Do you think someone else is needed, or do you think the existing 3, if you like, full-time people can cover all those duties?
No, I would think they'd be replaced. I would think they'd need somebody else. Whether it's 2 in for the 2 that have gone out, whether it just they think just one more coach. But I would think he would want another sort of pretty experienced coach. And when I say experienced, I don't mean somebody who's 60 years old. I mean somebody who he knows has coached and is aligned to the way that Notts want to play, aligned with the way that we the Reitz brothers set down this sort of mantra of the way the football is played, modern day coach. But what I mean is a coach with experience who's played that way, not necessarily experience in years and age and things like that. So again, like players, it's getting the right person. It's getting the right person that aligns, got the right personality, right character, as well as the right skills. So it's not easy. It's not easy. Again, because it's not absolutely critical. He doesn't need to appoint the first application he gets from any coach. So he can take his time until he feels the right time and the right applicant is available. And I would assume, and I don't know this, but I would assume that Stuart would get final say on who he wants in his coaching team. I said that's not appointed. Obviously, it's appointed by the club, but it's not the final say. Is the club dictating, here's a coach you will work with? I would like to think that Stuart is getting the final say on who that is. Now, the club may come to him with names, obviously, but I think it's important to get the right coach, important to get the right person or persons, people. But no, I don't think it's not urgent. It's not something you've got to fall over yourself to go and do this week, or this could derail our promotion bid. No, I don't think it's quite as serious as that. But I think they will replace them. Yes.
And Richard Elvian, it's a job for you, Stell. You fit the criteria. There you go. Campaign for Stell, assistant head coach. Hey,
Definitely not.
Task to follow, though. Hey, Craig Saunders, be a tough task to follow him. Hey, hey. Now then, I won't go any more than that. Dane Vincent, evening, Dane. Could do with bringing a decent tactician into the coaching staff. Maynard and former Brackets manager, co-manager Saunders found out way too often this season. Chris Gosling, wouldn't the obvious move be to appoint someone from the youth setup? Presumably they trained the same philosophy as the first team. I knew this was coming. Jurgen Halligan, Get Jim O'Brien in. Terry Robertson Maynard has said in a previous interview they're looking at adding to the coaching staff. I hope this happens as soon as possible and before the end of the season, preferably with EFL experience. It's Stell's audition tonight, says Richard. I think the manager listens to the show sometimes. So you never know. You never know. Stake your claims.
I didn't know he was an insomniac. No, definitely no auditions for me. No.
When he needs to get to sleep at 11 at night, he puts it on in his headphones, and that gets him nod off very quickly. Remy Sky, Remy, we've not heard from you for a long time in New York. We missed you all lots. Have been battling a life-threatening illness. Survived a heart attack on November the 25th and was in a coma. Well, very sorry to hear that, Remy. Glad that you are well enough to come back and listen to the show, and hope this doesn't give you a relapse listening to mine and Stell's rambling. So on behalf of all our flock, may we wish you a continued recovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to say the Macaulay Langstaff sale caused my heart attack and health issues, but sense of humour is important in these things, Remy. But anyway, God bless you and Lord Stallard and our beloved Pies. I've been rooting from afar, as I always have. Did she play a coach, says Stephen Shepherd. Right, okay. I think most of us... and following on from this, and we'll try and be as respectful as possible here. So I think most of us would have seen Matty Saunders' interview, which he did with Tom Williams. I thought it was a very interesting interview. It's a good interview to get. Listen to what Mr. Saunders had to say. I've got to say I was very surprised by some of the content. I suspect, that those two will not be working again in the not too distant future for a long time. I don't think those two guys will be working together again. Some of the stuff was interesting. Some of the stuff, I guess, a tad far-fetched. The whole solving football blueprint and that sort of thing, and the analogy with a carpenter who puts in a pair of doors in a house and then leaves the house and the doors stay there forevermore. I'm not totally sure it translates to football. What's your take on it, Stell? What's your take?
Strange one, really. I mean, I know I don't do Twitter and all that sort of stuff, but I do see stuff, and I know Tom Williams, he does a lot of stuff, analysis and things like that.
Yeah.
So I got told this interview was out there, and I had a watch, and yeah, I mean, the first thing to say for me, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it just is bizarre if there's nothing else to it, that midway through a season when you're wherever we were at the time, promotion places or just in the playoffs, that as a coach, you just decide, oh, now's the time I'm going to leave, with no other job to go to. So bizarre. So I don't know if something else has cracked off that maybe nobody wanted to speak about. But I thought Matt Saunders spoke well. I thought he certainly showed his enthusiasm. As a what's he, mid-30s sort of thing, wanting to make his way in the game. In terms of coaching, and obviously now wants to go and have a go at being a head coach or a manager. I thought he spoke well, as a lot of coaches and managers do nowadays, about the game. Talk, blind you with science in a lot of it, blind you with phraseology and terminology, but speak with passion and enthusiasm and drive and determination. And so you have to say good luck to him if he's opted to move. But good luck to him in his future career. You're right, I doubt him and Stuart Maynard will be getting back together anytime soon. I don't know if there's a falling out about it or what, but whether he felt he wasn't getting enough praise, I don't know. Like I say, I'm speculating, trying to put two together. And we saw how well I did that with the other thing. So yeah, I just suspect that something else has gone off that we're maybe not
Yeah.
privy to. Because why would you leave when you could potentially have a promotion to League One? If you're thinking of being a manager, head coach, getting a job, surely you would be better to bite the bullet for what, 4 months of the season and potentially have a promotion on your CV. That would put you in much better stead of any jobs that come up and interview positions than not. But hey, every person's different. Everybody's got different reasons. So it just seemed a little bit strange. But I thought he spoke really well. You know, I said shows he's got that passion, drive, commitment that a lot of coaches have now. Um, and if you can get players to show anything like that, then he may well be a success in the future. So obviously he's just waiting for an opportunity now. But yeah, so wish him well.
Mark Cass says, for me, he appeared to throw Maynard under the bus. Joe Cotty, I thought Saunders might have been heading to Wealdstone. They were very popular, the Saunders brothers, because his brother also has moved on. They were very popular as a team there. Andy Eastham, it's not just Matt, his brother Craig is in the equation too. Nobody in their right minds would walk away from a job with the team they are employed by, potentially on the up. Ian Cooksey, football being football, when if he does go for his next job, his potential employers will be well aware if something has happened. Look, I don't know if you call it a conspiracy theory or not. Not so pushing hard for promotion, Stel. Are you surprised? Should anything be read into the fact that three senior people within the football fabric of the club? In the case of Richard Montague, he was an executive director, i.e., that means he is on the board of the club as well as his position. Should we read anything into the fact that those people are electing to leave at a time when the club is mounting a strong push for promotion? And on the face of it, we all talk often, don't we, about the stability of this football club, the patience of the brothers, the investment of the brothers, the kind of non-interference of the brothers. They don't knee-jerk or panic. And I guess in the case of Richard Montague, he's moved to a club and not started, and they've made a decision to remove the manager. And in the case of the two brothers, they've left a club without a job to go to. Should we be worried about that or not?
No, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I don't think it's anything systemic. Like I say, you judge every incident in isolation, don't you? And in its own sort of with its own background. You know, Richard Montague's obviously been approached about Swansea. I mean, that's probably the more surprising decision, or not decision, not loss, if you like. More surprising, obviously surprised you last week. But
It was bloody surprising to me, I'll tell you that much.
But you don't often hear, like say, executive director, head of recruitment. You don't often hear of them being poached from higher division clubs, but this is the case. And obviously, like I say, I'm sure Luke Williams would have had something to do with that. You know, having mentioned it. Well, obviously, from the moment he had his interview and went in at Swansea, would obviously have mentioned about the model at Notts and things like that. And that's the more of a thing that you've kind of got to look at, is that Notts, with the way that they do things on and off the pitch, but obviously certainly with the results that have come on the pitch, other clubs are going to look at it. Other clubs are going to look at Notts as a bit of a blueprint. Oh, what are they doing? What are they doing that's right? So you with Luke Williams, we've had a manager go to higher divisions. Ian Birchnell went to higher divisions without any real success, didn't he? You know, and who knows where Stuart Maynard may end up going. But we had Macaulay Langstaff go higher, you know, Ruben Rodriguez go higher. This is what happens when you're down in the lower league, certainly as the National League as we were, then League Two, or now League Two, and you're doing well, and the club is run well from top to bottom. People want to look at that and see what are they doing, and cherry pick maybe the talent, or look at it as a whole, as a collective, going right. What's the structure that they've got in place? You know, it seems to work from top to bottom, and like I say, it's just what happens in business, isn't it? In any walk of life, you try and copy what's successful, and Notts have been successful in the Reitz brothers' time. So, Richard Montague going, look, I don't know what his position was within Football Radar. Obviously, we know what he was at the club, but he's had a chance to go and do it at a club that's 2 divisions higher, and obviously going to pay him a lot more money than he was getting at Notts. Because I'm sure he hasn't got family in Swansea. Maybe he has, I don't know. But I'm sure the geographical nature of that move was not the big selling point like it was for Luke Williams. So yeah, that was surprising, but I like it happens. If somebody's deemed as he's recruited well, we'll have him. Fair enough. And in terms of the two coaches, as we've said, like I say, I just suspect there's more to it. More to it than a coach who decides, you know what, I've sussed out how to play a box against a 4-3-3 or 3-4-3. I've got it. Brilliant that you have, but I don't think that's the reason you go. He was, like I say, and again, with no knowledge, with no inside info, with nothing, I suspect they either thought they were getting the Wealdstone job, or there's been some falling out, or something's happened that he felt that the job was untenable to continue. Because, like I said, why wouldn't you continue to the end of the season with a chance of some success on your CV?
Colin Metcalfe, I think, encapsulates the loyalty debate quite well. With clubs sacking managers stroke staff at the drop of a hat, it's no wonder said managers and staff put themselves before loyalty. Williams will always be a hero for me. I think that's very good, and I think that's very balanced. The shirt, the goalkeeping shirt, Darren Ward used to wear one of these. Absolute cracker of a shirt, that, Paul, says Luke Beardsley. And Greza Maxwell, who's a bit of a shirt collector, I understand, has gone one better. Paul, if you'll be so kind as to part with that shirt you're sporting, I'll gladly, he made this offer the other week for a shirt, I'll gladly fit you a new floor and jet wash your wheelie bins after they have been emptied until May. I'll study that offer. If you put it in writing, I'll take a look. I'll take a look. But they are pretty rare. These, I've got to say, they are pretty rare. I've also put it on because the heating's not come on, and it is like wearing, old phrase, it's like wearing a continental quilt. This, I tell you, there's more padding and fluff in it on the inside. Like lovely to wear. Right. Anyway, where was we? So what we'll talk about, Stel. Injuries. Okay. And we have clearly been having our fair share of them, not only numerically, but I guess in key players. Yeah. And Jody, David McGoldrick would clearly be two of the most outstandingly talented, game-changing players that we have. Certainly with Jody, we've missed quite a few games. Dizzy's got a hamstring problem at the moment, so we're not quite sure how long that's going to keep him out. And then you kind of move the needle on that debate as to when you get a certain level of injuries, how much does that then excuse deterioration of results? Yeah. Oh, we can't get results because, and we spoke very briefly before we came on air that the biggest clubs in the land, Manchester United have got an injury crisis. So-and-so has got an injury crisis. Yeah, they've spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. Manchester City have had if Manchester City can cry an injury crisis, let's be honest, every club in the world can cry on it. What are your thoughts on that? Have we been unlucky? Should we be able to withstand this? How much does this, if you like, and our results have been very good, but how much does this mean actually, well, you might take playoffs because we've had a lot of injuries. If we'd had a full team, we'd definitely be top three.
Look, I think we have been unlucky with injuries. I don't think there's any two ways about that. And you're right, we've had injuries to key players this season, it seems. And we've still got a third of it left, haven't we? So let's hope we're not, having any more than we already have. But yes, you can use that as say excuse. Makes it sound like it's not really a reason. It is a reason. If you don't have any team from Liverpool, Man City down, if you take key players out of their team, inevitably they're not going to be as good. Their results won't be as good. Certainly over the longer time period that the players are missing, I think that's inevitable. So nobody wants injuries, but you have to accept that you're going to get injuries. You know, injuries have always happened in football, and that's why you build a squad. And nobody's really, nobody's saying the squad has to be a certain size. That's down to head coaches, owners, budget, dictate how big your squad is. But your squad is there to try and achieve your objectives, whatever they may be. And from Notts, it's obviously playoffs and promotion, or playoffs and above and promotion. So how much do the injuries say, oh, well, if we don't achieve it, then we've still done all right? I would say a little bit, but not loads. There's a difference between just missing your objectives and being a million miles away. Last season, we finished a million miles away from where we needed to be. And I don't think anybody would turn around and say last season we were impacted unduly by massive injuries. Of course you have, and we have niggles and knocks and that throughout the season, but nobody would say we finished where we finished and so far away from the playoffs, but it was injuries that really caused it. No, it wasn't. It was a poor, last 5-6 months of the season. Started well, tailed away badly. So this season we've had more injury problems, yet we're doing better. So I think that sort of, for me, says the squad is stronger. We're not quite as reliant on one or two players. And we all know we're talking about. Jody obviously missed a lot of the season. David McGoldrick missed a few bits of the season. Dan Crowley was out for a bit and obviously was sold in January. How much that impact we've had with that, we'll leave to comment till the end of the season. But we've had a fair amount of injuries. Scott Robertson's out. Lewis McCarry's out. So injuries happen. And I was watching Man U Spurs yesterday, where it was all talk of injuries. Spurs, who obviously Postecoglou, who's been bemoaning injuries for the last 2.5 months. And whatever side of the fence you're on, you have to say they've been way underperforming, but they have had loads of injuries. So that's a consequence. If you're not replacing the good players with quite as good players, your team is not going to be quite as good, and you might get beat more. And Notts is exactly the same as that. So injuries have had an impact this season and may well have an impact between now and the end of the season. But we have navigated so far the 30 games that we've had pretty well, considering the injuries that we've had. And I don't think there's any reason why we can't continue to navigate our way to the end of the season and make sure we are where we want to be. It makes it difficult if you don't have all your best players available, but it doesn't make it impossible. So, yes, it can be, excuse always seems like a get-out word, a reason. It can be a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It can be mitigating circumstance or whatever, but it's not an excuse, if you like. It might be a legitimate reason. If we miss automatic by 1 point, do you then say, well, we've had loads of injuries, and if we hadn't have had them, I think we'd have probably picked up an extra point somewhere. But there is absolutely no proof of that. It's all hearsay. So you have to go and do it. So that is all just conjecture. The squad have to go out and earn the points that are required. And obviously first game is tomorrow night against Colchester.
Wayne Wilkins says, I class injury crisis after Gillingham at home until Cheltenham away. Take those results out, and I know Wayne does a lot of the old permutations, average points a game. Notts are averaging 2 points a game. Andrew Blatherwick, all clubs suffer injuries and suspensions. I think overall we have rode the storm pretty well. We'll be coming on to Mr. Traore shortly, Richard Elvian. Pythagorean, Man City are missing Rodri, a key man. Ian Cooksey, at that rate, 2 points a game, we would be promoted. Indeed, we would. That'd be 94 points. I've looked at the remaining fixtures, says Richard. In theory, I think 30 more points are attainable. Chris Gosling, all our injury issues seem to come from the same area of the pitch. That's our problem. Andy Easom, there were 7 absentees at Vale. Shouldn't omit Sam Austin as someone who is missing. Agrees Ian Cooksey. Sam Austin is a big miss. Rubes says defence and goalkeeper is definitely the reason why we're doing better. Target has to be, says Chris Gosling, to win all our remaining home fixtures. That alone would get us very close to automatics. The fixtures on the whole are favourable too. Do we pick up too many injuries, Sadal? We seem to have had, I mean, we talk about managing minutes a lot, don't we? And we've had instances where players have been withdrawn early, presumably on some form of medical guidance, yet we still seem to be having a lot of injuries.
Yeah, we do. And look, I have no scientific knowledge whatsoever, in terms of injuries and things like that. I physiologically, I knew my body, and that was about it. We are suffering with injuries this season. It seems more so than most. And again, I think this was a point that was being talked about on Sky yesterday with the pundits there. About there are all these analysts and S&C people and coaches, trainers, that much science in the game that they were arguing that in theory, but is there any evidence to say we get less injuries? The other side of that coin is that the game is faster, players are stronger than ever before, and you're pushing your bodies, like thoroughbreds. I was the old nag in the field in comparison in terms of athletic wise to the players nowadays. These are thoroughbreds now. They have to be, and I suppose the body is closer to the line of being injured. But I think there has to be a bit of something in. All teams seem as fit as each other, give or take, nowadays. So what do clubs do that don't get so many injuries? How are they managing it? I don't know. Obviously, the science community and all that sort of side of things will be dealing with things with the same science. They've all got the same numbers, the same data, the same everything. I think a lot of it comes down to just bad luck. If you're going to get injured, you're going to get injured. Sometimes can they be prevented? Yes, to a point, maybe. But also the other side of the coin is, but also if you're looking to rest people and manage minutes, do you then lower players' resistance and resilience to injuries and pushing their bodies beyond the red lines or the red flags or whatever? I'm sure this is debated in the science community, in the all the physios and all this, that they'll know all the arguments, and no doubt people far more intelligent than me will have data-backed answers as for why it's done, how it's done. But it does make you wonder, doesn't it, when you see so much science and so much help in the game now. It's frustrating to pick up the number of injuries that Notts have had this season, and it seems to just recur. Not the injuries recurring, but the instances of players being out recurring when you want them key players available in what is a season that we've all said is there for the taking, there for the grasping. If any team can do it, and Notts could certainly grasp it, they'd have a better chance of grasping it with all their best players available. But they're doing pretty well as they are. But yeah, it's never good when you see injuries. I personally think there's a certain element of, well, it is what it is in injuries. If you're going to get injured, you'll get injured getting in and out your car or going up and down stairs, as opposed to playing and training or whatever. Havertz got injured once he blocking a shot in training, out for the season for Arsenal. So look, injuries can happen in any number of ways at any time. It's one of them things, but Notts do seem like they're suffering. But how you ever do anything about it, I wouldn't know.
Matty Palmer proves, says Bud Chatwin. Hang on, I've just disappeared off my screen. Proves that if you say to the gaffer, I want to play and am ready to play, you should play. Chris Gosling, is there any possibility of a retrospective ban for Jatta raising his arm to the Port Vale defender? Didn't see it because I was at the game. I've heard about it, not seen anything further. So one would, fingers crossed, think that would be the end of it. It's more down to match demands on each player for each match for the increase in injuries, says Wayne Wilkins. It's more luck than anything. And here's a name from the past. Now, Jimmy Lindley's joining the show tonight, talking about this shirt. He used to wear it. I wore this yellow-green one as a YTS. Yeah, and I think you're talking, and I think you've kind of answered my question. So this would be the same Jimmy Lindley then, that was an apprentice academy YTS in those days. Was Jimmy there when you were there, Stal?
He was, yeah. Schmikes. Schmikes is listening. Yeah, yes.
Come on, tell more, Schmikes. Go on.
No, just blonde-haired goalkeeper. He wasn't Danish with a name like Jimmy Lindley. No, blonde-haired goalkeeper. If I've got my memory right.
I'm sure Jimmy will be coming back on the message board very shortly. But
it's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And if you're a few years younger, Mapley United could do with a goalkeeper. We're having a bit of a relegation battle in the MPEL top division at the minute. I'm not quite sure how old you'd be now, Jimmy, but our existing goalkeeper's 49, so you might be marginally younger. Anyway, Mark Williams not playing Charlie Whittaker in last game as he was stiff all over after the first full 90 minutes. He's 21 and you'd think he'd be raring to get games. Thoughts? Yeah, I think part of this, and me and Stella have this debate, Mark, is I think his phraseology and the way the club elects to communicate, I would call it injury news. The club now, so when you see the team sheet announced on Twitter, and obviously you will get the proper team sheet still before games, and the club kind of just caveat certain players to explain the situation, and it's, precautionary. For me, old-fashioned, injured. Right. But sometimes people can read precautionary as, just being rested for today. It'll be all right on Tuesday or Thursday. They're often not, and I think it's down to phraseology and those sorts of things. Because my understanding was that Didsey picked up a hamstring and was always going to be out of the game against Port Vale. But when you kind of use phrasing like precautionary, you kind of get your hopes up maybe that he's going to be ready the following week. Not quite sure where Charlie Whittaker is. Is there a danger, Stell, if you tell players too much about they're 70, 80, 90% fit? Does that get into your head? Or is there now a different mentality among players? Because in your day, you would accept, we've had the conversation before, that if you played 40 games in a season, you were probably only going to be fully fit for 10 of them. And the rest of the time, there'd be a little knock, niggle, whatever, but you'd get out there.
I was going to say 10 would be a luxury if you were okay for 10 of them. Yeah, look, the game has changed. I keep stressing this. The game has changed completely, not completely, but a lot. I think he came out just for the David McGoldrick when he came out and said he's expecting him to be 2 to 3 weeks after Port Vale. Dave asked him about that. The reason why the club are guarded, shall I say, with the injury news is because once you let the fans know, it's a difficult one, really. You want to let your fans know how everybody is, but also by doing that, you're letting your opponents know. And the club don't want to put out, we're not going to have David McGoldrick for the next 3 weeks. We're not going to have Jody Jones for the next 2 weeks. We're not going to have so-and-so for X weeks, because that's almost telling them, that's narrowing down the team that we're going to be facing against. So, they won't be facing them and them. So we'll line up a little bit different. So clubs don't want to do that nowadays in this, this era of, everybody can get information from anywhere. So that's why they're guarded. I'm sure they would love to let the fans know more, but you can't do that and keep it private. And the other bit, Charlie Whittaker's stiffness, I think that's just a way of saying it's not serious. I think if it was just stiffness, then my word, I've never known anybody miss just for being stiff. But I think stiffness means I felt a bit of something, or my hamstring's tight, or whatever it might be. and they have a look at it, go, yeah, there's signs of fatigue, there's signs of something. So rather than rush you into the next game, it's right. If we give you 2 or 3 more days, we can massage and do whatever treatment needs doing for it, and get you into a place where it's as close to absolutely 100% as we possibly can, knowing that no one football match is the pinnacle. Yes, the next one's the most important, but then you put in that in the bigger picture of you'd rather miss one and be available for 15 than play one and miss 15, if you know what I mean. So there's always a little bit of a balancing act from that. But this is where I do go back to, old school against the modern way. And just just a little thing is, because of all this protection of players, because of so much protection, of so many red flags, of all this science, of this, preemptive, predictive, maybe, of when you're getting close to fatigue, when you got a chance of pulling a muscle. Again, I come back to, and I've spoken to a few people in the game about this, and they say, but if there are red lines there and there's a range, not without going into too much detail, it's not just, oh, there's the point, and if you get anywhere near it, you're coming off, you're not playing. It's how do you ever push through that, and how do you ever make anybody fitter, more resilient, if then barriers are in place? Now, again, that's geeky sort of for intelligent people to debate, not me. But I still think there's got to be an element of challenge within it. Without being stupid, without disregarding all the science completely. But I think it still has to come down to, and I think it still does to a certain extent, the manager and the player having a conversation. How do you feel? Can you play? Are you right to play? Can you give me an hour? Can you give me 75 minutes? Can you do 90? And I still think that is a big part of the game. I still think that happens, but I just think that is down to the manager, head coach, and how much he listens completely verbatim to his, physio team and S&C team and the people with the data, and how much he goes, yeah, okay, I'll take that on board, and it might be for him that works, but for somebody else it might be, do you know what? With just a little bit of a push, I think he can play and get an hour out of, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know whether that's still in the game. I assume it still is. I assume it still is a little bit like that. But I just wonder nowadays, where players get all the data, all the info, all their stats and what have you, whether you almost give them a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of a cushion to sort of say, well, do you know what, if I don't feel 100%, I'll dip out this next one. And that's, I'm not saying anybody's doing that. I'm just saying I think, subconsciously it can kind of create a mindset that is like that. And I don't know, that would be polar opposite to what happened years ago. But the game moves on, gets better, improves. But sometimes a little bit of old school mindset at times might just be the right thing. But again, it has moved on, and I'm talking with no knowledge or experience or qualifications in that, other than having played the game and having a body that has felt like, yeah, a barrel of I don't know what. But yeah, it's difficult. And again, we're only searching for this because Notts have been impacted by the amount of injuries they've had this season.
Stephen Shepherd, I get injured nowadays pulling on my socks in the morning. Bath salt, says Richard Albion, to get rid of stiffness. Don't know whether Charlie's been in a bath full of bath salts for the last 2 or 3 days ahead of tomorrow, when hopefully we will see him back pulling on a shirt. Does Football Radar monitor how many injuries players pick up, or is that not a stat that gets looked at, says Andrew Blatherwick? Steve Jones, is it the pitches they play on these days that cause all the injuries? And back in the day, players played a lot more minutes in those days. Zedo, training facilities. Pitch down at Wilford in the summer looked poor. Is lack of regular good pitch contributing to some of our injury problems? Well, the base now at the university, and I know that there's a lot of work going on between the university and Notts with those training facilities, and there's also quite a bit of an exchange of sports science knowledge between the university and the football club. Let's come to the games. Yeah, Jimmy Linley, that's right, Stel. Yes, he is one and the same, Schmikes. 43 now, a long time retired. You're young enough to come out for Mapley, I'll tell you. Andrew Blatherwick, get Luke Williams in as interim manager at Mapley, Paul. Yeah, I'll sack myself. Okay, no worries. Right. Colchester, the Cowley brothers. All the rage, big name, weren't they? Were what they did at Lincoln. Got a good move. I think it was Huddersfield, Portsmouth. Been a bit harder for them in more recent times. Gone a bit under the radar at Colchester. I think they're quite wily foxes, aren't they? I think they're going to set up and spoil and make things. I think it could be quite tricky tomorrow. They're on a decent run, aren't they? They're on a decent run. I think tomorrow's a bit tricky, you know, Stan. I just got a feeling, bit tricky.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be sticky. They're 6 unbeaten. Probably the form team over the last 6 games in the division. Picked up 4 wins, a couple of draws. So they're going to be confident. You know, they're going to be confident. They're climbing the table. They'll believe they can come with a run and get in them playoffs. I don't think they'll be in the mix for automatic, but you know, you never can tell in football, obviously. But I think they'll believe they can get in the mix. They don't concede too many goals, which is not a bad trait to have. You know, not the most free scoring of goals, but again, the Cowley brothers have been round the block, haven't they, time and again? And it's a wily competitors. You know how their sort of teams are going to play. They're certainly not going to overplay. They'll ask you questions. They'll be difficult to beat. They're not coming in to win any popularity contests. And that can upset opposition. And like I say, while ever they're confident, you know, that they've got 1 or 2 decent players. Obviously, Lyle Taylor's played across the river. He's down there scoring 1 or 2 goals. So I'm expecting a tough game. Every game is going to be a tough game. Doesn't matter where they are in the league. You know, Tranmere on Saturday will be a tough game because the massive weight of expectation for us to win will be absolutely firmly in Notts Court. So every game's a challenge. But Colchester at home, again, it's a response we need from the Port Vale defeat. You know, thought we played really well first half without scoring. And then second half, I thought we were poor, you know, really poor, and conceded just a soft goal, really soft goal that you don't expect Notts to concede. The sort of goal that they've largely eradicated this season. So that's a frustration that sort of winning run came to an end, or that the unbeaten run came to an end. So now, again, just like after Salford, it's all about the response, and I'm sure the players will want to respond. They've had a bit of time off with a game Thursday night to Tuesday night, so they've had a couple of extra days to recover some legs. Hopefully, get 1 or 2 available for selection. But at home, you always fancy Notts. You know, we play well at home. Obviously, you'd like to think there's a decent crowd backing them again, as always. But you're right, it is not going to be easy. Do not come to Meadow Lane tomorrow thinking it's going to be a foregone conclusion, because, as I say, Colchester are up there as with the form teams in the division.
A stat for Stell, says Dale Pikett. Colchester have not won an away game this season when not scoring the first goal. I've no idea where you dig that up from, Dale, whether you're in some sort of statistical appreciation society, but I'm trusting you, Dale, that it's true. You'll get an assist for tomorrow. If Dave Bracegirdle comes out with it when we're on the way to the game tomorrow, you're sat in the nest with a pint, and Dave Bracegirdle comes out with it. You should be getting an assist, Dale.
Believe me, Dave, if that is the stat, Dave will have it. Dave will have that stat. Yes.
Oh dear. First goal tomorrow could be vital in that case, says Stephen Shepherd. The Cowleys know all of the dark arts in football, says Ian Cooksey. We have to be careful not to be sucked in by it. Andrew Blatherwick, the Cowleys will set up to frustrate us. They will give nothing away. I suspect tiles falling off scoreboards might figure in their pre-match talk to their players as well. The dark arts will be very much on show tomorrow night, agrees Andy. Joe Totty making the pilgrimage to Meadow Lane from Dorset for the Tranmere match. They will be desperate for points. Yeah, I mean they are well and truly sucked into that battle to stay in the Football League. They dropped out once a decade or so ago, didn't they? All good runs come to an end, says Richard Elvian, talking about the Colchester good run. Wayne Wilkins, Colchester are a good side. In the last 15 games, here's another one. They've picked up one more point than ourselves, Stel. There's another one for Mr. Brace Girdle, if he's not already. Got it. In the last 15 games, Colchester have picked up one more point than us. They must be on a bit of a roll. Bit of a debate about training facilities. Dane Vincent. Dane, excellent PR man at the club many moons ago. They used to train at Loughborough. Someone saying, what about going to Loughborough University? But the former commercial manager there sorted the deal with Notts when she moved over to the University of Nottingham. I also remember, were you there, Dane, at the time, when Notts actually, Stell, they moved to the National Football Centre at Burton and actually trained there. But I think the view was after about a year, it was too far for the players to travel. And I think it was Martin Allen said that they kind of didn't have their own identity, if you know what I mean. But I think it is an interesting point about the club at some point in the future establishing a long-term training base. I think it's more, rather than having one of your own, I think the kind of the longer term plan here is to develop something with the university, which of course have huge extensive grounds that are only 5 minutes drive from Meadow Lane. Just quickly tuning in from Tenerife, says PJ Defiance. We'll rewatch later. Evening all. Strikers Union, Stel. Traore comes out of nowhere, creates the yard. What was it? 5 yards? Was it inside the 6-yard box? Header, ready to become an instant. Not that he won't become a hero, but he was there to be an instant hero with that header, wasn't it? Underside of the bar. The rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely. Said it on the radio. You know, he very nearly made, like say, an instant impact. One as a point, but you know, let's be honest, should have scored. Should have scored probably, but he'd been on the pitch 10 minutes. So look, let's hope he becomes a hero, a long-term hero, as opposed to an instant hero. But yeah, I mean, just unfortunate for him. It would have been a perfect way to start his Notts career and just help him, you know, feel like he's part of it already. But he's only been in the building barely a week, hasn't he? So I'm sure his impact is yet to come. It will be felt, and that will, you know, a miss like that. I say miss, but hitting the bar like that, that will hopefully spur him on to be more determined to go and get not just one goal, but multiple important goals between now and the end of the season. So he was on the pitch 15 minutes and he had a golden opportunity. That's not a bad ratio of getting opportunities. As we know, every striker doesn't take every opportunity that comes their way. So let's hope he gets plenty more created for him and he tucks them away when they do come.
Yeah, I do take it as a really good positive because, you know, a lot of the time we've brought players in with kind of one eye a few months down the road, you know. And for instance, when Alessandro came in last year, took longer to get the work permit, understandably so, took him a while to acclimatise and train and all the rest of it. And, you know, the fact that Stewart is prepared to put him on the bench and bring him on for 10, 15 minutes, it kind of solves that potential short-term issue with Didsey out and your only recognised out-and-out striker is Jatta. So you've instantly got an option off the bench, haven't you? Instantly.
Absolutely. And this is something, again, I was saying on the radio. The one thing with Notts, for all the good football they played in the first half, and they do play, goals, actual putting the ball in the back of the net. When you haven't got David McGoldrick, obviously you're very then reliant on Jatta, Alessandro Jatta, this season. After him, from open play, the leading scorer in the league is George Abbott with 3. We have not got goals from loads of other. Well, I tell a lie, it's Dan Crowley, but he's no longer at the club, obviously. He's got 4. But players that are still at the club, that are going to be in the team, that are playing for us, we are not getting enough goals from other areas of the pitch. be that across the midfield line. I mentioned Conor Grant and Curtis Edwards in them 2 withdrawn positions. There's no Jody Jones at the minute, although from open play, he's only got 2 this season, but obviously missed a load of it. In his 5, he's got 3 penalties. So we are not a team that score loads of goals from free play outside of the centre forwards, if you like. So that is something I would like to see. I say concerted effort. The players aren't not scoring on purpose. It's very much to do with our not so setting up. But you're right in terms of if Mike Traore is the goal scorer, wherever he comes on the pitch, he's a guy who wants to score goals, has got an eye for goals. Then Notts could do with that because we aren't too prevalent in terms of players outside that centre forward, outside Jatta and McGoldrick. Like I say, George Abbott with 3 league goals from open play. That's not maybe what you would expect for a team like Notts who have so much of the ball and a lot of the ball in attacking areas as well. So Dan Crowley last year got double figures. Jody, obviously, with his assists and what have you. We had goals from other areas. Obviously, we conceded 1 million as well last season. So, there's a bit of an improvement. But even centre halves, Matty Platt, he's got 4, couple in the league. Jacob Beddoe, he gets forward, such a good player, and playing as a wing back the other day, but he's not got a goal yet. Just think we could do with goals from other areas. But again, predominantly, I'm looking at them slightly withdrawn positions that were Conor Grant and Curtis Edwards the other night. Neither one of them scored a league goal for Notts. I know they've not played a combined massive amount of games, but in them positions, you want players who can score goals. Conor Grant came close, but a good save out of keeper the other night at Vale. But again, almost scoring goals and scoring goals. There is a massive, massive difference. Lots of players can almost score goals. Not everyone can score them.
Hey, toughest job in the business, as you know well, Stel. Right, we'll
Hey,
come
I
to
missed my fair share.
You don't remember for the ones you miss. You remember for the ones you
Absolutely, that's
score.
it. And that's what I would say for my Traore. I'm sure he doesn't need telly, but that's it. You've got to be there to miss them. You'll miss loads. You'll miss loads in your career. But if you miss loads, it means you're getting loads of chances and you'll score your fair share as well. And as you say, nobody remembers the ones you miss, particularly.
Show coming to a close now. Thank you for all your participation. Very busy on the message boards again tonight. A date for your diary. The last game of the season is Saturday, May the 3rd, I think, against Doncaster. Let's hope we're up in automatics. Don't want to be bothering with them bloody playoffs. We have got a live outside broadcast Magpie Circle. I'm not going to say who the guest is, but it's a biggie. It's a biggie. That's going to be on Thursday evening, May the 1st. So stick that one in your diary. We'll be announcing more details in the next week or two. But Thursday, May the 1st. And hopefully we'll already be celebrating automatics by then. Don't want to get too carried away, do we? So thank you very much indeed. Get yourself down Tuesday, tomorrow, depending when you listen to this show, Colchester, followed by Tranmere on Saturday. Those of you looking for tickets, the next 2 away games tickets went on sale to season ticket holders today. That is Tranmere and Wimbledon, both now on sale from the club ticket office to season ticket holders. Thank you very much indeed, Stel. Thank you as always.
Pleasure, Paul. Pleasure. Hope everyone has a good week, and we get a 6-point week before we speak again.
Yeah, and I will not forget the sponsors tonight, even though we put them on the banner at the bottom. Our thanks to the Big Shed at the Trent Navigation, and our thanks to JH Accountants for sponsoring our shows and enabling us to do what we do. So thank you very much indeed to them. We'll be back next week. Let's hope we can maximise points from these next 2 home games. And you'd like to think then that we might be back in the automatic promotion playoff places. Thanks again, everyone. We look forward to catching you soon. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.
Cheers.